Only last week or so, we concluded the 83rd annual session of the Indian History Congress, where certain issues concerning the teaching and percolating of secular historiography in India were tagged. Of the 5 resolutions taken up by the Executive Committee and the General Body of the Indian History Congress, 3 regarded such issues, namely A, the history syllabus as drafted by the UGC to be imposed on our students in the Indian universities and colleges. B, the tampering, that is deletions and additions in school textbooks which would adversely affect the general understanding of our shared past by our young citizens. And thirdly, deliberate attempts by a certain section to denigrate the senior liberal left historians by claiming that they left space by confining themselves, what one of them wrote, in ivory towers, churning jargon-rigged papers. I am quoting here a very secular history enthusiast who had otherwise written that saffronization of history is a result of colonial hangover. This, in the words of a prominent author, is a comfort nest of left historians. According to such claims, the space was filled by Hindutva WhatsApp groups, who thus popularized myths in place of history. In previous years too, similar resolutions like the ones taken up this year at Indian History Congress had been adopted. Last year, that is in 2023, we had a resolution against the new education policy entitled History in the Framework of the NEP. In 2022, at the 81st Indian History Congress session held at Madras Christian College, Chennai, the Aligarh Historian Society had organized a full panel on this issue. The bane of history in the last decade or so has been threefold. 1, a return to the communal interpretation of the past. 2, attempts to glorify certain periods and personalities of the past. And third, the mythification of history in light of the above two. A further challenge thrown in this mix is 1, the challenge thrown by the term secular. For those dealing with the medieval phase of Indian history, there is the additional challenge of the very concept of medieval. For example, in the recently concluded session of the Indian History Congress, I don't know how many who were present there paid attention to that. A senior, highly respected and secular historian used the term medieval in the sense of backward, regressive, and dark as compared to modern, which is bright, open, secular, and of course scientific. The actual readings of the past, however, tell quite a different story altogether. I am just listing out the various challenges here. A related challenge is a heady mixture of the present times, the misunderstanding of the subject itself, coupled with troubled modern times and a wish to tailor everything to our own liking. And this is a most serious challenge, as it has given rise to what is known as WhatsApp history, and a debate centering around popular historians versus academic historians, and an assumption being sold by even people like William Dalrymple, albeit in an interview given to the press. He did not write it anywhere, he just gave an interview, but it became very popular. And then magnified by others, as I have already quoted above without naming him, that the academic historians, especially the left historians, failed to reach the masses, and thus, by their inability or neglect, left space for the rightists to fill the resultant gap. And this charge is being repeated again and again. Our friends have forgotten that serious historians like Romila Thapar, R.S. Sharma, Satish Chandra, Bipan Chandra, and a host of others all contributed to immensely popular textbooks which were banished in 2003 by the first BJP NDA government. They continue, however, to sell and be read by the masses. Irfan Habib's Medieval India, published by National Book Trust. Late Anirudh Ray's The Sultanate of Delhi, published by Manohar. Meena Bhargav's 2-volume Exploring Medieval India, published by Orient Black, as well as her book Understanding Mughal India, are some other such examples. At least from the pandemic onwards, popular lectures on various aspects, both mundane and contentious, have been given by authorities and respected academic scholars, and which are actually flooding the YouTube and social media nowadays. Having said that, let me also stress that academic points and battles can never be fought on social media. However, I will concede that academic historians are not adept at reading with inverted commas, social media trends and tailoring their writings accordingly. That is not the job of serious historians at all. Dalrymple's The Golden Road, How Ancient India Transformed the World, which has recently come out and has been praised a lot, could not have arrived at a more opportune moment. It is, after all, the duty of so-called public historians to filter the academic writings of the academic historians and bring them out to the public. We, like Dalrymple, do not write only what is being discussed in the WhatsApp groups. Isn't it hilarious that first you remove popular writings of these stalwarts which they had written for these students, and it happened in 2003, and then blame them that they are doing nothing. On the other hand, you try to invisibilize organizations like Sehmat and AHS, who through their writings, books and journals, try to write for the masses and then claim that serious historians are sitting in what I have already quoted, ivory towers churning jargon-ridden papers, allowing space to WhatsApp historians. So first, you obstruct them and then you blame them that they are not doing anything. Of all these challenges, however, the growing communalism and communal approach to our past is the greatest. Let us start with the word secular. Secularism is a core principle enshrined in our constitution, which ensures the coexistence of diverse religions while keeping states' impartiality towards all faiths. In India, secularism does not mean what it is meant by this term in the rest of the world, that is, a negation or antithesis to religion. The framers of our constitution borrowed the concept from our own past, which is now we are being asked to forget. It is clear to Hindutva that unless we forgot our past, the concept of coexistence and acceptance of all and negation of majoritarianism is not possible. To bring in majoritarianism and negate the concept of the coexistence in the past, they have to destroy history. I will give one or two examples from ancient India. In Rock Edict 7, Ashoka, who sitting here does not know him, he says, and I quote that edict, "There should not be honor of one's own religion or sect and condemnation of others without any ground." In various edicts, Ashoka employed the term Pashanda, which in Sanskrit is known as Pakhand, for all established religions and religious sects. You know what Pakhand means. Ashoka used this term Bhamana for Bhamanas, that is Brahmanas, and Shramanas, that is the Buddhist priests. He is using the term Pakhandi for both the religious groups, for those who are Brahmanical and those who are Buddhist. As against these Pakhands, religion according to Buddhism is Pakhand, he forwarded his own dharma or dhamma, a way of life, a code of conduct based on non-violence, tolerance, compassion, and respect for all. He preferred a moral conquest over strife. I think this is quite enough to understand why attempts are now being made to do away with the memory of Gautama Buddha himself. You know, in one of the meetings held by the UGC 2 years back, where, the framing of the courses was taking place, I don't know why they invited me. Perhaps they thought that the Shias of Lucknow, they are aligned with BJP, and I, being a Shia, would also be there. So they invited me, and their basic aim there was somehow to remove Dhamma and Ashoka. They did not succeed, that's another matter. If we look at the framework of the new syllabi, which is now under force, it has been implemented, we are told, of the need to promote among students, and this framework says, a feeling of ownership of their own history. Irfan Habib, in his essay published in Social Scientist, volume 49, published in year 2021, finds this absurd. According to him, it simply means that one can shape history as one likes, our past. Since it's our own, so we can have the liberty to shape it. This signifies that the teaching of history, according to the present favours of history syllabus, is nothing but a glorification of the past. The Indus culture, also known as Harappan culture, has been re-nomenclated as Indus Saraswati civilization, just to somehow link this culture with the Aryan culture. In fact, this sentiment of our Aryan past or in origins is given strength in introducing a new topic which has been included in the syllabus original home of Aryans. All our Dravidian past, all discussions on Dasyus, all discussions about Tamils, the entire history of Kerala, for example, is given short shrift. The only history to them of the ancient period is the Aryan past. The migration of Aryans to India is simply dismissed as a myth. Further, an attempt is made to present the epics like Ramayana and Mahabharata as facts of history. The entire concept of multiple tellings and retellings of these epics is also brushed under the carpet. The student now studying the present course will never come to know about the diversity of our traditions. Ram and Krishna are shown as historical figures, as historical as Gautama Buddha himself. All references to the development of a shared culture too is summarily dropped out. Medieval period has been reduced to a period of loot, rapine, and temple destruction. Jalaluddin Muhammad Akbar, who was another very great ruler of this country, just like Ashok, he was also a Chakravartin for that matter. And in fact, like Ashok, his empire spanned over various modern nations. The very concept of now which is being forwarded to us as a dream, Akhanda Bharat. I mean, if that was ever there, it was under Ashok, who is being banished. It was under Akbar, who is now being, ignored and in fact invisibilized in the course. There are very bare references to Akbar, for example. His references are there only as an adversary of the great Maharana, Rana Pratap. Haldi Ghati finds pride of place, but Ibadat Khana discussions and Akbar's policy of tolerance are gone. If Ashoka had talked of a Pakhanda-free society based on moral ethics, Dhamma, Akbar came up with the idea of Sulhekul, absolute peace, or we can say peace with all. Abul Fazl, Akbar's official historian and confidant, articulated this Sulhekul as Muhabbat-e-Kul, absolute love or unfiltered love. Unfiltered love towards whom? The makhluk of God, creation of God. The king was not only a temporal authority, but also a representative of God. Nay, he was Nur ala Nur, light emanating from God. And thus, he should not discriminate between God's creations, Khalqullah. Incidentally, the same terms were used by Aurangzeb, who is a much maligned figure these days, in his Nishan, which was issued to Rana Raj Singh. Religious distinctions during the medieval period, which is now denigrated as a communal period, religious distinctions during that period had no meaning, while rituals of faith were nothing but ways of simpletons, sada law. Thus, Todarbal could carry idols hidden within his sleeves, while Murad's officials could be allowed to perform namaz. Father Montserrat, the Jesuit priest in Akbar's court, was right to call this, all of this, I am not going into the details, but call all of this as negation of all religions. If today the present decade is marked by prominence of religion, medieval period under Akbar is the period of negation of all religions. Tulsi, it was during Akbar's reign that the cults of both Ram and Lord Krishna became popular. Tulsi slept in a masjid, to write the popular account of his Lord, while the priests of Sri Chaitanya sect were encouraged and financed by the Mughals to popularize the legends of Lord Krishna. In fact, both these traditions of Lord Ram as a major god and Lord Krishna as the major god in Hinduism started developing only from the period of the Mughals onwards. This was carried forward by Dara Shikoh, whose father Shah Jahan, in a grant to a Vaishnav temple, had declared, this is a farman which has been cited by, amongst others, Professor Irfanabi. The lighting of lamps in temples is ibadat-e ilahi, just like praying in the mosque. Dara not only translated Upanishads into Persian from where they were introduced to the world, but also wrote Majmaul Bahrain, the intermingling of two oceans, which translated as Samudra Sangam. To him, Islam and Hinduism were not so remarkably different. Both were monotheistic. The Hindu religious texts like Upanishads were Kitab-e Maknoon, the unnamed hidden books mentioned in the Quran, which were the words of God, sent by God time to time. If Akbar believed that no prophet was born in India, as this was a land of avatars, God's incarnations, so did Dara. What is the need of being a prophet when you can be the avatar of God himself? To Dara, at least some Hindu gods were to be considered as prophets. Retaining and teaching medieval Indian history as it was being done from after independence to 2014, according to Modi ji, the 1,000 years of Indian slavery ended in 2014. Now, if you continue with teaching history like what I have narrated above, would negate the very communal agenda of not only the colonial historians, but also the Hindutva foundations. Thus, it was to be changed and negated, or at least suppressed. If you allow the modern research to prevail, one will come to know that this entire philosophy of inclusiveness, of social ethics, and peace between different communities did not come into being just due to one or two individuals like Ashoka and Akbar. It had not taken shape in a single reign or due to the efforts of one individual. I have just named individuals, but this was an entire process which was taking place. If you distort the syllabus and make deletions, the new generation will not come to know of a coin of Sultan Mahmud of Ghazna, which was minted at Lahore and which mentions Muhammad as not the prophet, as the avatar. And that in No Sipeher, a book written by Amir Khusro gives the first real appreciation of India. No text before Amir Khusro's No Sipeher defines India as an entire subcontinent, with all its languages, regions, cultures, and traditions. He also says that India was the favorite land of Allah, where he caused Adam to descend. I quote one line from Amir Khusro: Hindustan was a chosen land of God. It was not Hindu India or Muslim India. Actually, a text written under Zamorins much before Akbar, labeled his kingdom as Darul Aman or Darul Islam. It is generally said that whenever there is a Hindu king or a kingdom where the Hindus are ruling, that is supposed to be a state of strife, Darul Harb. And it is only a place which is run and established by Muslims is known as Darul Islam or Darul Aman. But under the Zamorins, much before Akbar, the entire place where we are sitting was labeled by the Muslim writers both as Darul Aman and Darul Islam. Islam probably arrived in 7th century, and by 12th century there was a strong Muslim presence in the Malabar coast. The area was ruled by a Hindu king entitled Samudra Raja, which in Malayalam, as you all know, became Samutris, the Zamorin in European usage. Under Zamorin, the Muslims enjoyed many commercial, political, and religious privileges. Tom Pyers, in early 16th century, wrote, and I quote, "All the merchants and sailors of Malabar who traded on the seas are Muslims." According to a modern authority on the region, and I am citing M.G.S. Narayanan, perhaps all of you sitting here know about him, his book Cultural Symbiosis in Kerala, 1972, the patronage to these Muslims was such that the Zamorins were called Moorish chieftains. Barbosa, Duarta Barbosa, testifies to a large number of mosques which were allowed to be constructed. Today we are digging up such structures to find temples. And Zamorin, according to Barbosa, was allowing these newcomers to construct their places of worship. He also tells us that the Mapilas, that is Indian-born Muslims of this region, carried most of the trade and they were well provided for. Several surviving mosque structures and their epigraphs in the coastal area authenticate the information. And in the area where we are holding this conference, I think every one of you must have seen the Calicut and mosques of the nearby territories which were constructed during that period, some of them financed by Zamorin, the Hindu king himself. It is a well-known fact that in 1502, when Vasco da Gama requested the Zamorin to banish all Muslims, the ruler found it unthinkable to expel more than 400 households of them at Calicut, who lived, and this is in inverted commas, not my saying, as natives, not as strangers. On the other hand, a number of Muslim intellectuals of that age wrote treatises and delivered sermons in support of the Hindu Zamorin. Texts like Tahridul Iman by Zainuddin Makhdoom during late 15th century, or Khutbat-e-Jihadiyya. Today, if you use the term jihad, it means strife, and they say, look here, there is a text having the reference jihad. And what is this Khutbat-e-Jihadiyya writing? I will mention. And then another book, Qasidatul Jihadiyya. Again, the term jihad is there. And a very famous work of this region, Tuhfatul Mujahideen of Zainul Abidin Jr., who died in 1583. All these texts mention Zamorin as our ruler. Further, Malabar under Zamorins, as I have already pointed out, is referred to in these texts as Darul Aman, thus bound by the rulings of Darul Islam. Although Zamorin is not a Muslim, but His territory is not Darul Harb. I'm not going into the details. There is a paper for the younger students. There is a paper by Mahmood Kuria, which has been published in Journal of Indian Ocean World Studies in 2017. The details of these things have been established. Now, the argument which I am trying to develop in this paper, which is, I think, has been circulated, and there is no need for me to go reading from it on and on, the entire argument is that all these evidences which I have presented before you would be lost to the present generation if the attempt which is being made in the new education policy succeeds. The new education policy has changed the entire syllabus of history. And the change is in the form of all these things which I narrated today. They have been removed and replaced by what? Stories of Rana Sanga and Akbar, stories of Shivaji as the Hindu Hriday Samrat and Aurangzeb as his adversary. So my point in this keynote address is that we should not forget what our great authorities, the intellectual historians like Romela, Irfan Habib, Satish Chandra and others had written in their textbooks. I have not written anything which is not there in these popular books which were removed from history by the first BJP regime of Atal Bihari Vajpayee. Today, they are telling us historians that you have left the gap so that those who do not know history are filling it up. Now it is up to the present generation to read them and try to give an answer to those who want to divide the country. Thank you very much.